Blue Origin is landing on the moon this year. At least, that's what the Jeff Bezos-owned rocket maker has been claiming at a recent meeting of the Lunar Surface Innovation Consortium. A Blue Origin senior vice president revealed that the company has 2 prototypes of its Blue Moon lander currently in development. The first is under construction right now at a dedicated facility in Florida and is scheduled to be complete in the coming weeks. Following that, the Mark 1 prototype will be shipped out to NASA's Kennedy Space Center and integrated into a Blue Origin New Glenn rocket for launch before the end of this year. New Glenn has flown once in January 2025, and the heavy lift rocket was able to successfully deploy a test payload into its target orbit. The New Glenn booster also attempted a water landing on that flight, but it failed on re-entry. Blue Origin is currently scheduled to try again with a New Glenn launch targeting August 15th for flight test number 2. If New Glenn is successful at deploying Blue Moon into Earth orbit, the lander will then fire up its BE-7 hydrogen engine to make a 7-day journey to the lunar surface. Blue Origin is targeting a location on the moon's south pole, and they're aiming to land with an accuracy of less than 10 meters away from the intended target. Once on the surface, Blue Moon will deploy payloads from both private customers and NASA. All that we know right now is that the NASA payload will be on board to measure the dust that gets kicked up by the engine's landing burn. This would be the biggest and most powerful vehicle that's ever landed on the moon, even bigger than the Apollo spacecraft, so we're very curious to see what effect it's going to have on the lunar environment. It's important to note that there are 2 variants of the Blue Moon. Mark 1 is designed to work as an uncrewed robotic platform with a payload capacity of around 3 metric tons to the lunar surface. This is what the company is testing right now, but these tests will pave the way for Blue Moon Mark 2. That's the much larger human landing system vehicle that NASA has contracted to deliver astronauts to the moon on Artemis 5, if such a mission actually goes through. A lot of this schedule is totally up in the air right now, but that's not stopping these companies from pressing forward with their hardware designs. Before Blue Origin can land people on the moon, they need to verify yet another spacecraft. That's the Cislunar Transporter, which is a refueling tug designed to support Blue Moon Mark 2. Because the human-rated lander will be bigger, will carry more payload, and will need to lift off from the moon to return its crew back home, that's going to require a refueling session before making the final descent to the surface. So the transporter is going to launch on a separate New Glenn rocket and deploy into Earth orbit. Then the transporter is going to be fueled with excess propellant from the New Glenn upper stage before setting course for lunar orbit. The transporter can carry 100 tons of fuel from the Earth to the moon, or even 30 tons of fuel to orbit around Mars. The transporter will park in the same near rectilinear halo orbit around the moon that NASA is planning to use for crew transfer from the Orion spacecraft. Once there, it's going to meet up with a waiting Blue Moon Mark 2 and transfer propellant into the lander. Now let's be clear, this is no small task. A cryogenic propellant transfer in space between 2 vehicles has never been done before. SpaceX has been planning to attempt the first orbital propellant transfer this year, but their Starship keeps blowing up, so it might be some time before we see that happen. Blue Origin says they are actively working on technology to hold that cryogenic liquid hydrogen at extraordinarily low temperatures for long periods of time. At a test facility in Washington state, they've been able to hold fuel with 0 boil-off at temperatures as low as -424 Fahrenheit. Either way, that's all stuff that won't be relevant until several years into the future. What's important right now is that Blue is nearing completion of their first Mark 1 lander as we speak. They are currently integrating the main engine and expect that work to be done by the end of the summer. And a second Mark 1 lander is not far behind. Within 6 to 8 months of the first launch, Blue Origin will be ready to try again. So if the first moon landing fails, the company has an opportunity to iterate and test their corrections. If the first landing succeeds, then the company rides that momentum into establishing a solid presence on the moon in 2026. And if that all works out the way that we just imagined it would, then that would put Blue Origin well ahead of their partners in the Artemis program, including NASA, who is supposed to be leading the charge back to the moon by supplying crew transportation, but has instead just been struggling to keep up. Now, there are many reasons for this: politics, leadership, money, but even core fundamentals like engineering and design have been